Okay, so we are going to go over the distance formula. What the distance formula helps us find is the distance between any 2 points on the coordinate plane. Now, if I ask you to look at this line that I just circled in green, if I said, what is the length of this line? Because it's a vertical line, you can look at the change in the y values. So I can actually count 1, 2, 3. So this line would be 3 units. Because it's vertical, I can tell. Here, this is an example of a horizontal line. Again, I can look at the difference in the x values, which is 2. I can count 1, 2, and this would be 2. So when the lines are vertical or horizontal, it's easy to tell the distance. But when the line is not vertical or horizontal, like this one I have here, it becomes a little more complicated. So the way we actually do it is we turn this into a triangle. So I draw a vertical line, which here I know is 3, and I draw a horizontal line, and here I know this is 4. And I know this is a right angle, and that this particular point here is, let's see, it would be positive 2, positive 1. So this would be 2, comma 1. So how did I get a distance of 3? Well, if you look, I did the difference in the y values, right? So 3 is the difference in the y values, y2 minus y1. 4 is the difference in my x values, x sub 2 minus x sub 1, right? Now, I want to figure out what the red line is. Well, I have a right triangle, so I actually know that this is A, this is B, and this is C. So to get the length of C, I could say C squared equals A squared plus B squared, right? But how did I get the length of A, which is 3? Well, what I did was I actually said A was y squared minus y1 was, I'm sorry, y sub 2 minus y sub 1. So I could square that. And B was the difference in my x's. So x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared. And to actually find out what C is, I would square root both sides. And we actually find out that the length of C, or the distance of C, is the square root of the difference in your x's squared plus the difference in your y's squared. And that is the distance formula. And it's derived by using the Pythagorean theorem. So now, if you turn in your packets, let's see what page. Went too far. Okay, turn to page 22 in your packet, and we go over the distance formula. So it tells you that the distance formula is the difference in your x values squared plus the difference in your y values squared, and you square root the whole thing. And again, this formula was derived from the Pythagorean theorem. Now, so if I give you 2 points, in this case, we give you 3, 5, and 6, 4. I label one x sub 1, y sub 1, and the other x sub 2, y sub 2. And I say the distance equals the difference in my x's, so 3 minus 6. And the beauty of this formula is you can say 3 minus 6, you can say 6 minus 3. The sign does not matter because you're going to square it. So even though I can do 3 minus 6 here, if I mess up and do 4 minus 5 here, I'm still going to get the right answer because it's the difference in the two, and since you square it, the sign doesn't matter. So this becomes the square root of 3 squared plus 1 squared, or negative 1 squared, but again, it does not matter. So D equals the square root of 9 plus 1, and D equals the square root of 10. So that is the distance formula. So now let's try to do another one. So again, I label this x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. I write that the distance is the difference in my x's squared plus the difference in my y's squared. And it does not matter which one comes first, x sub 1, x sub 2, and I can even mess them up since I'm squaring them. So here I'm going to do 2 minus 3 squared plus 0 minus 5 squared. I get d equals negative 1 squared plus negative 5 squared. And that becomes 1 plus 25, or the square root of 26. Okay, so now let's look at the next one. So if you think you got it, go ahead and copy this formula and try it on your own. Stop the video. If you want, you can just watch me do it. So for the next one, again, I'm going to label it x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2. Distance equals the square root, the difference of my x's plus the difference of my y's squared. So d equals the square root of 2 squared plus negative 2 squared. So d equals the square root of 4 plus 4. D equals root 8, which then can be simplified to 2 root 2. Now, I just want to warn you, you see, there is a difference between doing here, the square root of 4 plus 4 is not the same as the square root of 4 plus the square root of 4. So the square root of 4 plus square root of 4 would be 4. Square root of 8 is not the same as 4. So remember, you have to add these together first, and you cannot turn this into two separate square roots. Okay, so why don't you go ahead and try number 3, and when you're done, turn the video back on and check your answer. So d equals the square root, the difference in my x's is 4, and the difference in my y's is 3. So I get d equals, and I guess I should say 4 minus 7 squared. Sorry, I did that backwards. This is 1 minus negative 3 squared, and this is 7 minus 4 squared. So you know where I got that. So d equals the square root of 4 squared is 16 plus 3 squared is 9. This becomes the square root of 25, which equals 5. Okay, so now you're going to turn the page and do the next 6 on your own.